This program has been made possible by the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel Media Network, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
When you partner with Mesilla Valley Transportation, you can count on a group of hardworking professionals that make sure your freight is secure, handled with care, and delivered on time. We have proudly been moving America's cargo since 1982, starting with local businesses to now transporting for Fortune 500 companies. We invest in the industry's most advanced technology when it comes to dispatching, logistics, and safety. You can trust that our customers are our #1 priority. Every day we drive our company to be the best, and that's why we drive for you.
Arturo Uribe with Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement. Welcome to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum. Today we have Senator Jeff Steinborn and the challenger, Ms. Kimberly Skaggs. Our commentators today are Shirley Baca and Kelly O'Connell. One of the things that has been a challenge for us this election cycle has been, how do we engage with the candidates? How do the candidates engage with us, the voters? And so this is one of the things that we've had to come up with. We are in this pandemic, following the governor's orders, using social distancing. In between our candidates and our commentators, we have partitioners, plexiglass partitioners. We're wearing our masks, and the place is sanitized. We have a Safe Sets International certification for the COVID certification for this studio, and we're very proud of that. With that, this is for you, the voters. We've got maybe 15 more days to the election. I myself have not voted yet. You guys are in my district, and I wanted to hear what you had to say. So the pandemic has caused us to come on. We are now live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you want to ask a question, you can go on live, Facebook Live on the Las Cruces channel, and you have an opportunity to ask the questions. With that, I'd like to go ahead and allow my commentators to introduce themselves. Kelly?
Hello, Kelly O'Connell, and local attorney, and was an academic researcher in St. Thomas and Miami focusing on ancient law. Was at KOBE Radio Bravo Mike for 6 years, and currently a writer at Canada Free Press, a columnist, and I was the house piano player at Encanto for a year, which is the high spot of my life. Thank you.
All right, Shirley.
Good evening, everyone in the listening audience, and to our Senator and Kim, Arturo, and Kelly. My name is E. Shirley Baca. I am a former state representative from here in Las Cruces, as well as a former public regulation commissioner, and currently I am a legislative and legal analyst for the New Mexico State Senate majority, and the majority is currently the Democrats. That being said, and as Arturo said in the introduction, elections are being held right now. I'm proud to be wearing my little I voted pin. I went Saturday when all the satellite sites opened up, so I went to the City Hall right downtown Las Cruces. So hopefully everybody's voting, or you're going to vote as soon as you have listened to the programs and made up your mind. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I looked at the voter registration breakdown in the district. There are almost 14,000 registered Democrats in the district. 13,704. 8,362 registered Republicans. But there are 7,384 independents and people that did not stay. So when you look at the voter registration, you know, it's one of those districts that, you know, could go one way or another. It's not like one of the districts that we saw last week that even if all the Republicans came out, all the independents came out, that there was still no way they could win. But 64% of those folks are Mexicano descent, Hispano. So it's a pretty, you know, large district for Mexicano voters and all that. I'm sure you guys know the district, but you know the boundaries go from where? Do you know, Kimberly?
I do, all the way from the very northern border of Doña Ana County, which is above Hatch, all the way down into the heart of Las Cruces, and it hugs the west side mostly of I-25.
Right on. So I mean, it's an interesting district. With that, I'd like to go ahead and just open up with our commentators, and I'll Shirley, go ahead and you can have that first question.
Thank you, Arturo. Okay, I'm going to present this question to both of you, but I will start with Senator Steinborn. Senator Steinborn, you've led two important job creation initiatives. Right now, jobs seem to be on everybody's mind as number one. It was the creation of the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument, and you founded the Film Las Cruces and Film Las Cruces Studios. How do you see these initiatives progressing, and how have they been helping the community and the economy in the community? And just so you can be thinking, Kim, the question will be, what two economic development initiatives would you propose to create jobs in Las Cruces or Doña Ana County? That being said, two job creations that you initiated.
Yeah.
Senator Steinborn.
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody, and I'm really sorry to make you miss the beginning of the Cowboys game, although I'm probably quite certain you're not missing it. You're watching the Cowboys game, and maybe you'll catch this a little later. I am Senator Jeff Steinborn. It's an honor to be with you. Thanks for hosting this forum. These forums are really important, and I appreciate that it's still happening during a pandemic, because people deserve this opportunity every 4 years to be able to ask real questions, get real answers, and be able to vet candidates in their choices. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, I was the first person hired to lead an effort to, at that time, try to protect the Organ Mountains for conservation purposes, as a mountain that we know has tremendous growth and building development. And that, over a number of years, turned into an expansive opportunity to be able to protect a lot of the wildlands of Doña Ana County. And as I said throughout the entire effort, that this is such a win-win for our county protecting these places, because not only are we going to protect them for future generations and wildlife and the environment, but we're going to ultimately make us a very desirable place for tourism. So that's what's occurred. We got it protected. I was standing next to President Obama in 2014 when it happened, and we've doubled outdoor tourism. So it's a really big part of our future. Several years ago, I also, probably 8 years ago, I worked to start Film Las Cruces to help our community tap into the $500 million film industry in the state, which is thriving up north, and we have all the ingredients down here to be successful. Since, in the intervening years, we opened a studio, we've got a film office, we've got a wonderful staff, and we have really steadily grown production here, including bringing Clint Eastwood's The Mule here. So that's another exciting opportunity for us. Thank you.
Kimberly.
So the question was to what two initiatives would I work on? Number one, I think we should reduce the unneeded regulations that our small business owners are currently facing, which would allow them to grow and, of course, hire more people. Secondarily, I do believe we need to attract stable long-term companies that'll provide stable long-term employment. To do so, we've got to take steps to attract those companies, because I cannot imagine that I am alone in being tired of losing our children to even just our neighboring states. We need to make it so those companies are comfortable being here so that they can grow and grow to the point where they can provide really good jobs for our kids so we can keep them here.
All right.
I have a follow-up question for what she just said, and then I'd like to ask my own question. But it's stated by some people that this is the worst city in America to try to open a business. Do you know why that is, and what would you propose, just briefly, to do about it?
So when I opened my company here, on the city level, I found that the city was very helpful. I didn't have a lot of trouble opening it on the city level. The city of Las Cruces was very helpful. They walked me through. I was unfamiliar with the city's regulations. They walked me through, and they were very helpful. I actually look forward to working with our city. I think there's some zoning issues, but I think that's more of a county level.
Okay.
So, Representative, do you want to follow up, or?
Senator.
No, you know, I will just say that I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We like to parrot this talking point that we are, you know, not a business-friendly community. I know that lots of staff at the city and county level work really hard to be accommodating. It's a tough, you know, I think our state has challenges within the population that create all kinds of challenges. We're going to talk about schools later. And that's probably reflected in economic challenges as well. But I think we're a wonderful place to set up shop. And especially now, where you can go 10 minutes out your backyard and hike in a national monument. You know, the best green chili on the planet, great quality of life, great culture. You know, this is actually a place during the pandemic that lots of businesses are looking towards being here.
So I'll skip my first question and just ask Jeff a follow-up. It seems like a ghost town in some parts of Las Cruces. There's so many empty business, you know, buildings. What caused that? What could we do about it?
I think it's probably a cascade of individual stories that found hardship in challenging times. I think generally economic development takes strategic vision as a community, as leaders. It just doesn't happen. I mean, sometimes you might be blessed with an embarrassment of riches, but I can think of numerous other towns, whether it was Ogden, Utah, who found itself in these amazing mountains like we are here, that said, we want to be an outdoor recreation mecca. Then they recruited Osprey. They made these things happen. Or North Carolina, that used to be tobacco country, and said, we want to be high tech. And now they're known probably internationally. So economic development is a deliberate policy process, and it's one that we have assets here. You have to get very clear on your vision, and then move towards that target and develop the resources. So I think you know, we have a lot to work with here. Obviously, I'm passionate about that, but we need to keep working towards making it happen.
All right. Shirley. Wait. Kimberly, he asked that question. I know that, was there anything you wanted to add to that? I know it was directed to the senator.
The only thing I can say from personal experience is it is so hard to open a small business, and it's exceptionally hard to bring on employees and be able to pay them so that they can have a great life, not a difficult scraping by trying to make the rent payment. My husband and I, we have a commitment. We don't pay anybody minimum wage. We're not even in the range of minimum wage for a starting pay for any of our employees. I don't believe in minimum wage whatsoever. I don't believe in it. I believe it's debilitating to a low price point business. But I also believe as a guideline, even with our, in the city of Las Cruces, we've agreed on a higher minimum wage. Even that isn't even enough to pay rent and buy groceries for a family. How many hours do you want people to work?
Okay.
Right.
Yes, on that same line, and that's a very good point, and it's a segue because I noticed in the New Mexico Business Coalition questionnaire that you filled out, you said that you opposed a mandatory minimum wage and sick pay. I oppose a minimum wage in the sense that I believe in livable wages, and most people can't live on what a minimum wage is, and the economists have said over and over again, just to have a livable wage, we need to make a minimum of 15 bucks an hour, and we have to have sick pay and child care. So you mentioned minimum wage. The business questionnaire, New Mexico Business Coalition questionnaire, said that you opposed it. So why did you say that? And now you're saying,
no, I do oppose
something.
it. No, you're okay. I do oppose it. I oppose it, and I wrote in the answer, I believe, oh, help me. I believe it said, it's debilitating for low price point businesses. I believe that's what I said. So if that's the case, that business owner has a responsibility to grow that business to the point where they need a full-time secondary employee.
Can you give an example of what kind of a business that would be in the area of?
Let's go small retail. Small retail shop. I go, I open it. I get to the point where I'm getting tired because I'm working Monday through Saturday. It's retail, right? Monday through Saturday. Let's say that I'm not open on Sundays. Let's say I'm getting tired and I want to hire an employee to come in and help me. Well, if the minimum wage is where it needs to be for us to be able to have a healthy lifestyle, I can only afford an employee for maybe 2 hours a day. However, that should put me in a position as a business owner where I need to build my business and get my revenue up to where I can bring that person on with a great wage. The $10-ish an hour it is now isn't even enough to pay rent and buy groceries.
Senator, that same
Yeah, you know,
thinking?
there's a lot of myths about the minimum wage. The irony here is, you know, with all due respect, talking about the small businesses, that we see these huge businesses, these major corporations, some of the wealthiest people on the planet, the Waltons, that until they were forced to pay $10 an hour, were gladly paying a subsidization wage of $7 an hour. And they still would today, frankly, if the Democrats in Santa Fe hadn't raised the minimum wage up. And that is a subsidy wage. As Kim says, you can't live on that. Half of our state population is on Medicaid. So what they're doing is they're letting the state of New Mexico subsidize health care, subsidize food aid off the backs of billionaires who could absolutely afford to pay more. So I think one of the myths with minimum wage is it's just paid to college students, maybe it's just small businesses. But in fact, in this community where you have so much poverty, you see lots of big box stores, and it's sad that you have to force them legally into paying more of a livable wage. But that's the situation we found ourselves here. And if you got rid of the minimum wage, you would see that exploitation continue.
Okay, that brings up a follow-up question. Do you believe that we should charge these big box stores that are owned by billionaires a set minimum wage and give a break to the poorer business owners?
That's a really interesting concept. I don't think that's probably the right way to go. It's good to have a level playing field for all kinds of reasons, but I mean, it's an interesting concept. But the reality is they employ lots of people as well. So I am not anti-big employer, but I am pro-decent wage. And that's when FDR created the minimum wage back in the 1930s. It was for the working poor. It was not about college students. It was about saying, hey, we've got to make sure people, if you're going to work a full-time job, can pay your basic wage. It is no longer a livable wage like it was. So anyway, I appreciate the question, though.
Kimberly, do you want to
Kimberly
add?
have some?
So you brought up the Waltons and a subsidizing wage. Did you make that up?
No, I didn't. I don't think
I'm
so.
just asking, because
Yeah,
sometimes I make up words that fit my ideas. And I was just checking.
Yeah, but I don't.
I'm like, I like that.
I don't
Did
like
you
to,
make that
I don't
up?
like to get constrained by the English language though, all the time. That's true.
Sorry, I have no
it's fair.
manners.
Good.
The reason that catches my attention, so my husband's company, we're water well drillers, and rarely when we do work for a government entity, we are forced to pay prevailing wages, right? Yep. Why in New Mexico, because we know that we have the ability to raise wages in certain cities, and they're calling it a living wage, right? Why can't we set up our wage structure the exact way that we pay our employees when we are working on a government job? A laborer gets X amount of dollars, an operator gets X amount of dollars. Me, the office girl, gets X amount of dollars. With the fringe benefits, with everything, and we're happily required to pay it and happy to do so.
All right, we got a question off of Facebook that I'd like to ask for Stacy. She asked both candidates, how much does the EBID rights and privatization of water have to do with this particular race? And how can you be sure that it will be fair to all of Doña Ana and not just your district? And Kimberly.
Oh my goodness. I am going to respectfully defer to Jeff. What do you think, Jeff?
I'm honestly not clear on the question. You asked about EBID rights?
Yeah, how much does the EBID rights and privatization of water have to do with this particular race?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, but of course I love to try to answer it anyway from what I do understand.
Does Elephant Butte
EBID
Irrigation-
is Elephant Butte
Yeah.
Irrigation District. What I will tell you that is, legally speaking, a certain amount of water that falls from the sky, that falls like in our wildlands, it is the belief, legally speaking, that it is owned by the irrigation district to capture that water. I think in our valley, we do see competing needs for water that are all mutually exclusive and important, whether it's farm or whether it's urban interests or conservation, water that needs to stay with the land for the environment. If you suck all that water out of the environment and siphon it off to a concrete ditch to get it to some private person, that's not good for our natural world. So it's, listen, we have to balance out all the competing needs to try to continue to have a manageable, sustainable water supply for everybody, and yet what that means in this world of climate change is we need to be as efficient with our water as possible. We need to conserve water where possible. And yes, we all need to share water, and that includes EBID and everybody else who uses it.
All right.
So I'm going to
I didn't make up a word.
You're okay. I'm going to clarify a couple of things. So when you say, I believe you used the word divert. No, you didn't. You used a word to harvest, take the water.
Yep.
So it's a diversion, because in the end, it's a cycle. So if we divert, I don't know, make it up, 2 acre-feet over to Kelly's property to irrigate your pecan trees, you irrigate and it filters back down. So it is a cycle, and because of the drought, we're receiving less, right? However, that's not a privatization. That is an agreement. The EBID, they handle surface water. The New Mexico State Engineer, they handle groundwater. And those rights, they complement one another. As far as privatization, I am not sure what you mean by that, because both of those are governmental entities.
All right.
I'd like to respond to that, even though I'm not one of the candidates, because I think the question is kind of misleading. When they use the word privatization, one could assume that they mean private entities, like a private agricultural business, like pecan farming, as you mentioned. And the two entities, what they do is they regulate based on what the water laws in New Mexico predicates.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do, because we're talking about regulations that protect our water, our air, and our land. Again, Kim, in the New Mexico Business Coalition questionnaire, you wrote that you oppose that and you called them unnecessary. You oppose the regulations that protect that. So I'd like to know why, And I'd like to know what you think, Senator Steinborn, but I'd like to start with you because we are talking about our natural resources.
Of course. So very quickly, I didn't say they were unnecessary. What I said was more regulation is unnecessary. I said that the state of New Mexico has done an exceptional job laying out rules, regulations, policies, and procedures that protect our natural resources. I did not say it was unnecessary. I said further regulation was unnecessary, to clarify.
Okay,
Senator.
and Senator?
Well, I mean, listen, nothing is more important than protecting our water resources. I mean, few natural resources in the state of New Mexico are as important as protecting our air, water, and land. And the reality is, listen, you can screw a lot of things up, okay, in our community and our world, but the environment is something that is precious, that we have an obligation to pass on to future generations as good or better than we found it. And we rely on it ourselves. And back to economic development, people do not want to live in a polluted place. They don't want to move their business to a polluted place. Arturo fought for years against pollution and industry that was the dominant, issue in the southern part of our county. So this is what this is about, is that government needs to protect these natural resources, particularly our water that we drink, our air that we breathe, and yes, our land that gives us so much sustenance as well. So I think it's actually very important. I'd be on the other side of the scale.
Okay. And just talking about water, our communities have been dealing with infrastructure needs. The Colonias Initiative, I'm sure both of you are familiar with that, and the Colonias Infrastructure Trust Fund. The flooding issues that have taken place over in Rincon, Rhodey, Hatch, from Mesquite to Sunland Park, Chamberino, these are, a yearly occurrence. But where do you guys stand on supporting the Colonias Initiative and the Colonias Infrastructure Trust Fund? And Kimberly.
I have not studied that. I'm going to be honest.
All right. Well, you should.
I will.
It's a $10 million fund that we've fought for many years for our communities so that we can have the infrastructure needs like roads, water lines, sewer. So, it's a very important thing for many of the communities in Doña Ana and the state of New Mexico, California, and Texas.
Okay, thank you.
But maybe you can share a little bit there.
Sure, and
I appreciate your honesty.
I empathize because you learn a lot of these things through serving as well, and so I have the advantage of having been there, and I'm sure through time you'd learn all these things, but we may not agree on what we learned, but you learn about what they are. The Colonias Initiative, the Colonias Infrastructure Fund, it takes 5% of our severance tax from oil and gas, and it commits it to colonias, which are certain poverty level designation, federal designation actually, of communities. And I thought there's 30 some odd in Doña Ana County, more than maybe anywhere at all. And so it's an incredible pot of money that goes towards wastewater, sewage, water infrastructure. Huge win, right, when we got this done for Doña Ana County in the legislature. I was there in the House when we did it. I was on the floor fighting for it. It was a huge win. Since that time, we've certainly had legislators from around the state try to take it and say, well, we all need money, right? We have poverty as well. So we have fought to protect that. Frankly, Mary Kay Papin was one of the champions. With her leaving the legislature, it's going to be awfully darn important that we're in positions of financial responsibility to continue to protect that. And by the way, after we created it, we then also created a tribal infrastructure fund for tribes modeled on the Colonia Fund. So just great ways to target funding at areas of high poverty, and it's certainly needed, and especially in our district where we have many, many colonias going up to Sierra County.
So now that you've said that, I spent a couple of Saturdays up in Salem, and I got to meet some of the neatest people. I mean, just amazing people. And while I was walking around, I met one gentleman. He was outside, and he came up and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm running for Senate, and I just wanted to meet everybody if possible." And he says, "Well, I don't understand what you think you're doing up here." And I mean, honestly, they're a closed community. That's fine. And I said, "Well, I'm here to listen. I'm here to there there's a lot of trash on the ground. There's a lot of trash. Well, this gentleman that I was visiting with, he said, well, we pay a waste fee in our bill. We pay a waste fee in our bill, but there's no trash collection. So they have no solution for their trash. So thank you very much for educating me on that. My mind immediately goes to, maybe we can get these people the trash service that they're already paying for.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. Thank you very much for the questions we're getting on Facebook. We'll do our best to try to answer all those questions, but also you as candidates have an opportunity to go back, look at the questions, and if you feel entitled or feel like you want to answer those questions, you're more than welcome to. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
When I think of MVT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.
Your hairstyle?
Not yet. All right, thank you for coming back to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum here with Senator Jeff Steinborn and Kimberly Skaggs. We're getting questions off of Facebook. We'll do our best to answer those, or ask the candidates about those questions. And again, I just want to encourage you to go back and look at them if you can't answer them here. We'll go, Shirley, if you have a question.
Okay, yes. During the special session now in June, the legislature passed Senate Bill 3, which was the Small Business Recovery Act of 2020. Again, economy and business it seems to be the primary concern right now. So what do you think about that legislation, Kim? And should we continue with this? And the same question will go to you, Senator.
I honestly believe that anything that our government, our legislature can do to help small business absolutely must be offered. I believe it was a definite good try. It really was, but I really think we need to really help small business absolutely as much as possible.
All right, Senator.
You know, it was a good bill. It basically provided $400 million. It created a $400 million fund for small businesses who were specifically hurt by the pandemic if they could show that their businesses took a serious hit. I think it was in March or April. That they could qualify for, I want to say, 2 months reimbursement. By the way, this program is still out there if you are one of those businesses. Having said that, you know, it's got its limitations as well. And so I think we're working out some bugs. Let's face it, right now, people in debt, people struggling, don't necessarily need another loan. They need some business. They could use maybe a grant. But the loan, I will say, is extremely low interest. You don't have to start making payments for another 3 years. So there's a pitch. If you are in that situation struggling, you need a little bit of cash flow. We have local businesses who have taken advantage of it. Go to the New Mexico Finance Authority, and you can apply there. But the application expires coming up here. And so one of the questions is what to do in the next session. Do we continue this program? I believe we absolutely should. With the pandemic going on, it's going to be with us a while. We need to make this liquidity available to Mexicans, and we need to figure out where what we can do to make it more, more attractive as necessary to help struggling small businesses.
Kelly.
Yeah. Okay. So COVID. I mean, that's been the #1 subject in the United States for the last few months. So, #1, I want to ask you, yes or no, just don't get into it too much. Has the government been using, or leadership been using COVID as a political football, #1? #2, tell me what we did right and what we need to improve on, or what we could improve on. Kimberly.
Government in general, I don't believe has handled it all correctly. I think it's a sloppy mess. And Jeff, you brought up the Waltons. Why was Walmart allowed to stay open, and why are our local small business owners shut down?
What's the answer?
Equal treatment for all businesses, period.
Do you believe, this is going to put you out on a limb a little bit if you're honest, but you may believe that the governor in our state has mishandled this? Well, how do you feel about that, yes or no?
She's not alone. A lot of the governors made the choice to leave the big box stores open and just leave the mom and pop, the small business, to just struggle and fall apart. And the problem is those are our neighbors and our friends, and we are watching our friends and our neighbors fall apart. And there's nothing we can do to help them.
No safety net anymore, huh?
There's nothing.
Jeff.
Yeah, yes. The question was, do I believe COVID's been used as a political football? I will say yes, by President Donald Trump. President Donald Trump, he's exploited people's pain. He's exploited their ignorances. He's exploited the lack of good knowledge about wearing masks. And he's played to those ignorances and those inconveniences by making people actually dissent against their own government. The very government they needed to listen to save their life. I don't know if you remember a time where he literally went on Twitter and said, rebel Florida, rebel Louisiana, rebel Michigan. Now we've had a governor who's had literally what's the right word, a hijack attempt on her life that the FBI stopped. Okay, this has been used as a political football.
Are you saying that Trump is responsible for that attempt to kidnap her?
I'm not saying he's responsible for it because I don't know their discussions. I'm saying, though, that he continues to fan the flames of an environment that seems to make that acceptable. He speaks to violence overtly and not overtly. So I think, I think COVID has been used as a football on that level. I think our governors have had to actually be the ones on the front line to try to keep us safe.
How has our governor done?
I think she's, by and large, I give her an A. She has done a great job trying to keep us alive. Listen, COVID isn't a situation where we all come out unfortunately, it's synonymous with economic pain as well. I tend to agree that I think the application of which stores could be open and not is something that could have used more tweaking at the beginning when we were focused on essential services. But having said that, by and large, she's had to make the tough decisions, and we really got lucky having someone with a health background as our governor when this historic pandemic hit.
All right, here's a question from Facebook. Terry asked both candidates, Doña Ana County would be better served if we could focus on our strengths and our similarities rather than our differences. Taking the political parties out of it, what have you done to ensure that we are in this together? Senator.
Well, I think for me, as a senator, I try to look at what we got to do to become just a better community, a better world, a better place, better students. I mean, most of these issues we deal with are not partisan issues, like protecting the environment, like fighting for good schools so our kids have a chance. my hopes and dreams and trying to grow the film industry and help kids in Arturo's area or up in Hatch to be able to have visions to try to keep our best and brightest here. None of these things are partisan issues. So I think if you get into politics and if you focus on doing things that'll create good results, then ultimately that is really not about partisanship. It's about helping people. And that's why I think this job should be about at its best, and those are the things. That's why I do this work, and it's really, I don't use a political litmus test to decide if something's a good idea or not, because there's good ideas on both sides of the aisle.
Kimberly.
Jeff, similarities and differences. I'm not a political, this is my first time, okay? And in general, I'm a very friendly person and I'm very easy to get along with, okay? I have run an absolutely positive campaign and I will continue to do so. The fact that you sent mailers out to our constituents where you alluded to the fact that I'm a racist is pretty hurtful. Those of you that are waiting for the hateful anything to come from my campaign regarding you, you will be sorely disappointed because that is not the type of person I am. And I will not do it, period. And that is how we are different. How we are similar, I do believe you care about the area. I really believe you do. But I know that I care about the people.
I'd just like to respond.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kim, it's tough saying something that's tough about an opponent in a political contest. I frankly was kind of troubled by some of the things that you've done, and you've been part of groups that marched with Confederate flags, and I never called you a racist. I said you embraced racially insensitive symbols, I think is what I said. I think when you march with Confederate flags, when you share things on Facebook from Donald Trump talking about we're a proud nation and we will fight to protect our heritage while Confederate statues are being taken down, then those are racially insensitive symbols in a community that, as Arturo said, is majority Hispanic. And so those are just the facts of the situation. I'm not calling you a racist. You talk a lot about preserving our heritage,
yes.
Which when you combine that with marching with Confederate flags, it begs the question, what is it that you're running on? That's your platform, talking about preserving our heritage while also doing these other things. So you can explain that, and I would love to know the answer to that.
So when I say preserve our heritage, I'm very, very serious about it, in that if we have a symbol that is up, that is maybe unattractive, maybe racist, that doesn't mean it's okay for the public to go tear it down. That means it should be taken down and preserved so that we can learn from it, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. Tearing the obelisk in Santa Fe, where were our police? Where is that okay? That's not okay. And as far as marching with a Confederate flag, I'm not going to march with a Confederate flag. My niece and nephew are Nigerian. I'm the only white person in my whole family. I'm jealous of our Hispanics. You know why? Because I learned how to love my kids from my mom-in-law.
But you did. Okay. But you did. And so it's something good to look at. And this is also a growth process.
All right, I've been getting numerous questions on Facebook, but they want to know where you guys stand on abortion. And Kimberly?
Absolutely not. We cannot use government funds, my taxpayer dollars, for abortion. I have not accepted any money for my campaign from any pro-choice organizations, and I won't.
Jeff?
So I think it's a tough choice for a woman in that situation, but I absolutely support a woman's right to choose. And this is because because of what's going on with the Supreme Court, a major issue in our community and certainly in the state legislature, because we might be confronted with being the front line or backstop, or however you want to put it, to preserving women's fundamental rights as they exist today, or going backwards to the dark alleys where women's health was really compromised. But I am pro-choice, and that's where I stand.
All right, Kelly.
Well, I just have a quick follow-up. They talk about late-term abortion. How do you feel about that?
I think there's circumstances where I'm not an advocate. I think it's a very painful situation, but I think it depends upon the circumstance. But certainly, there's circumstances where things are medically necessary to protect the life of a woman, and so again, I support doctors and best health practices.
All right, my follow-up question.
Kimberly,
I'm sorry.
Did you want to add anything to this is a follow-up question to
Late-term abortion.
late-term abortion?
She's already said
I was
she's
pretty
opposed.
clear. I was pretty clear about it, I
All right,
think.
so here's a question. Defunding the police, Kimberly, and then Jeff.
Defunding the police, absolutely not. But what we do need is we need more training. We need to make sure that our officers are mentally stable, period. It is a position of power, and it should be treated with respect. We need to have guidelines. I believe in the body cameras. I believe in maintaining that footage. I believe there's a lot of really great officers out there, and I believe a few really bad officers have made it really rough for the great ones. Okay. So I think we need to fund them more.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't believe in defunding a law enforcement mission in our community, and I do support reimagining how we do law enforcement. I think with great power comes great responsibility. We have this as public officials, but law enforcement certainly does, carrying a gun and having that position of power over the people that they protect. But they can also things can become you can get heavy-handed as well. And so, should we reimagine it? Yes, we should.
But do you look at maybe Seattle and Portland and say they went a little too far in the attack on the police, or the kind of rejection of police?
Man, I can't speak for what they did in there as far as their position on the police. I just know how I feel about it, and I really value those that protect us. I truly respect their job. It's one of the hardest jobs I can possibly imagine. I know any of us, if we're threatened, we're in jeopardy, we want that. We want that safety. And so at the same time, we all, as public officials, including them, need to be held to a very high standard of care. And that's really what I think it's about.
And Kimberly on that.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, oh.
Did things get too out of hand in Portland and Seattle?
In Seattle, it scared me to death. My sister lives in Seattle. She was very close to the area that was affected, and there's a few sleepless nights. And we need to fund them, train them, and that what happened is not okay.
I think we've talked about Seattle and Portland enough. I think we need to get back to New Mexico and District 36, because that's what you're both running for. And even though I think both of you answered that you do not support defunding police, one is saying let's look at how we're going to approach it. The other is saying more equipment or whatever. The bottom line
I
is
didn't say more equipment.
Accountability.
I said more training.
Okay. I'd like to get to education, because we know that education is an issue that is really, really important in New Mexico. We're not going to develop our economic situation. We're not going to do anything that does not fall on a quality education. I did notice in your campaign page, Kimberly, that you said we need to keep taxes low to attract and retain businesses and industry, and to allow for a better quality of life for our citizens. So I'd like to know, how do you plan to improve our schools and higher education industry, and higher education institutions with low taxes?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, because you just tied a... Jeff, you made the comment the last time we were together New politicians, they're for everything, and then you have to figure out how to fund it. You said that, right?
I said some people are.
I'd like to get your answer.
But that includes
I don't
people who
know.
are
But
in
here's
the
the
office.
answer, Shirley.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about education first.
Okay.
Because that's what you said you wanted to talk about.
Yes, and it's a public entity,
Thank you.
which is funded by taxes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So education, yes, it's funded by taxes. Currently, it's funded very heavily by oil and gas. But the biggest problem isn't funding. The biggest problem is our model of education. We have to admit we're failing. I went and I toured a charter school up in Albuquerque because there weren't any open down here. And I went and I met with some incredibly brave people who have put together an education model. They are at 91% proficiency in this school, whereas the rest of the Albuquerque public schools, they're hovering in the low 30s. We have to honestly take a look at the actual model of education. You can throw all the funding you want at it, but if you're doing it wrong, it doesn't make any difference.
Senator.
So, yes, education, Kimberly and I agree that from our last discussions, education is the ultimate bedrock of our future prosperity. It's the ultimate way out of poverty for our kids. But it has to be funded, and that's the thing. And yes, that is going to take incredibly tough decision making. When you get to Santa Fe this next session, we're looking at a deficit, and I know that because I've seen that movie. I was here for the Martinez era, where we went through those challenges, and we literally had to borrow money because the governor would not commit to finding new revenue sources, even if it meant raising the tax on a pack of cigarettes by 20 cents. So the reality is that yes, it does involve money. It's not just about changing what we do. We need to be smart about what we do, but we need to continue to raise teacher salaries. We need to fund early childhood. There's nothing more important we can do in this state than to really give early childhood education to young kids coming up and their young parents with home visiting. But we need money. It's estimated to cost hundreds of millions. There's a proposal to take a little bit of the $20+ billion permanent land grant permanent fund in the state, one of the largest in the country, a little bit to do it. I'm for it. Kimberly's against that, at least what you've said on a questionnaire. It's true story. So we can say we're for it, but that's a proposal, something I support that would actually fund hundreds of millions. Without that, we will get no money for it.
But on that, on a follow-up question on the same thing, though, is what is the model? What is a proposal of a model that you think is going to improve education?
Briefly.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Very brief.
Both of you.
Super
Yes,
easy.
go ahead. Yeah, go
Super easy. Stop social passing. Whenever they are the young ones, if you cannot read by 3rd grade, you cannot advance because you have to be able to read the text to be able to absorb the information. If you can't read proficiently by 3rd grade, you are held because you're setting them up for failure for the rest of their lives.
Senator?
My model is let's surge early childhood. Let's develop more vocational training. Let's continue to grow and keep the best and brightest teachers here. Let's continue to actually grow the best and brightest young people here. But it's just we need to keep doing what works. And there's a lot of good science about what works. We're on that path as a state, and but obviously it takes dollars. So if you just have good intention without the resources, there is no actionable plan. So it does take resources as well, I believe.
And there's many questions. I hope you guys do go back and check out, the Facebook live stream because they're asking about education. We just can't get to all the questions in an hour. But we're going to go ahead and allow you guys to ask a question of each other. Okay. You guys got a minute and a half to answer, but just please ask a question. Kimberly, you can start.
Jeff, are you willing to apologize? For turning a campaign into something nasty?
I would say I wouldn't characterize it that way, and I know it's painful, but I will say, and I'm going to answer your question maybe with my question, which is I was born and raised in this community, and I realize you just moved here 2 years ago, The first, or whenever you moved here, but you got registered in 2018 in Doña Ana County, as I understand it. The first time you voted in this county was when you voted for yourself. And so in 2018, that's not the first time you voted. But
That's untrue.
In Doña Ana County.
That is untrue.
Okay.
So you know.
Or
Let's get to the
in
point.
2020, excuse me, not 2018.
Run out of time.
But anyway, the point is that.
Will you apologize?
No, because I think it's important that people understand what their options are and they understand these finer prints, because politicians aren't going to say, hey, listen, I'm really for this. I really said to this group of people I'm against protecting our water. I'm against increasing minimum wage. If you don't educate voters, now is that negative or is that telling them the truth? So I mean, I know it's not fun. I know that better than anybody right now.
All right, and you have an opportunity to ask Ms. Kimberly Skaggs a question.
Well, I just, as someone relatively, new to the public issues here in Doña Ana County, what makes you feel like you're in a good position to represent this district moving forward?
So here we go. I'm going to be dead honest. When I picked my head up and I looked around, okay, I realized that I was part of the problem. And I can use a million excuses. I was raising babies. I was running businesses. I was educating my kids. I was doing everything I was supposed to do to be a good contributor to my community. And all of a sudden I looked around and I went, I have to either try. I have to try, or I have to hush up about it. I was one of those people griping and complaining and pointing fingers everywhere. I was part of the problem. I will not be part of the problem anymore. I will be part of the solution.
All right, and with that, you guys got a minute to go ahead and ask the viewing audience, the voters out there for their vote. So Kimberly, I'll let you go.
Mine's very quick. If I have not gotten to meet you yet, I tried really hard to meet as many people as I could. If I haven't gotten to meet you yet, I would love to have a conversation with you. You are welcome to call me. My cell phone number is 575-491-3891, 3891. I would love to have a conversation with you and answer any questions you may have. And I'd like just the ability to earn your vote.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am running for another 4 years of really a tough job to continue to move this state forward, to number one, keep us safe from COVID and continue to support the hard decisions that have to be made or are going to have to continue to be made. Continue to try to support the tough decisions to give us the resources we need as a state to grow or continue to improve forward. The worst thing we could do at this moment in time is to allow our difficulties get the best of us. Because what that will mean, and we saw it during the last decade, is it means we will regress. And we will see more poverty, more hunger, more child abuse, et cetera, et cetera. We have to continue to move forward even amongst our challenges. I'm ready to keep on working on all these issues and keep fighting for an ethical government, protection of our natural resources, and to really support our rural communities, whether it's the historic village of Doña Ana, all the way up to Hatch, that we're honored to have in this district, and of course the great city of Las Cruces, and help us move forward. So I definitely ask for everybody's support. Please stay safe out there.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you guys coming out and for, letting the people, the viewers, get a chance to hear from you. Like I said, we got a lot of questions on Facebook. I do encourage you to go back and take a look at that. And I wish you both good luck on your campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So, pretty interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what did you think, I guess, Kelly?
I liked it. I thought there was a battle between the newbie and Kimberly, and Jeff has got his experience and he's well seasoned. I thought the part about when she responded to the race issue was very powerful. It was very emotional. And when she told that her family, that she was basically the only white person in her family, I found that very astounding and really got my attention.
Yeah, but when I hear that, I always say, when somebody says I'm not a racist, why do you have to say that? When you have to say I'm the only white person and I have relatives or friends that are black or brown or whatever, then that right away, myself as a person of color, it already lights a light bulb up for me. Why do you have to say that? I mean, you know, it's like saying my best friend is black or my next door neighbor is Asian. So that, to me, was not a positive.
I would disagree with that.
Well, that's because you're a white man. I'm not. And so I think that people that come from different ethnic and racial backgrounds think differently and feel differently about the responses.
But what she was saying, though, was you've accused me of being a racist, and maybe, I don't know if she was, you know, she was correct or not. I don't know what the advertising said.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen.
I went
live
on
in the
Facebook.
district. Have you?
I went on the
Yeah,
page,
but
and she was in a parade.
Hold on,
There was a truck with the Confederate flag. Okay, go ahead.
My point is that if she says, I live amongst these people, I'm one of these people, I find that very persuasive. And she says, I learned how to be a mother from my Nigerian mother-in-law, I find that really powerful.
But I mean, I do understand where you're coming from also, being a minority Mexicano living here and then traveling outside of New Mexico and seeing these symbols and what they mean. So my opinion about that is much different. But I thought she did a pretty good job of explaining, but I didn't see the advertisement. And so that's something that for me as a voter living in their district,
Right.
I didn't get that advertisement.
Right, I'd like to see it first.
I'd like to see it too.
But I do want to say that I think that Jeff did a good job. He's very smooth. Jeff, I know Jeff from doing radio, and he's a likable guy. And I thought what was persuasive about him is he seemed concerned with people, and he's in the center. That's what he communicated.
Well, would you have anything you want to add to that? Because I was really kind of well, go ahead, Shirley,
Oh,
first.
you were what?
Well, for me, like, you know, I know Jeff also, but sometimes when people are asking for an apology and you don't give it to them, I just kind of find that, like...
He wouldn't admit he was wrong.
Yeah,
That he
I
might have
kind of was
misunderstood.
taken back. I just thought he would have, you know, hey, you know, maybe, like, I don't know. I don't
But didn't he-
Well, you know what I would have
politics
said?
is
I would have said, how come somebody in the Republican Party had an ad on their Facebook page that had my head on a lynching rope? I would have said that because he was seen on a lynching rope, of which somebody wrote in and said, I'm going to show that to the rabbi. And so I think he missed that opportunity because he was aware. So, you
That
know.
could have been a Democrat, though.
No, but there
No,
was. I did see
it was
that
on a
one.
Republican.
But it was a PAC.
But I like your point because when I was listening to him, are you going to give this apology? I was really kind of conflicted because if he gives the apology, he's weak. But if he gives the apology, on the other hand, he shows that he's strong.
Yeah, I thought that was the best question she asked, and then
That was an unbelievable.
Yeah,
move.
I just really thought that was very brave of her, and it was very interesting. I did see the advert where they had an advert, and that's something that we're learning about. Some of these candidates are being represented by PACs, and those PACs, they go out and they do things. They do their own thing. They're not supposed to coordinate with the campaigns or the candidates, and that's something that we're seeing.
But you know, Arturo, I don't know if you should say to somebody you're the wrong color to know what the truth is. You know, I mean, I found your response to me, you're white and you don't understand. Maybe I understand anyway.
Maybe you do. Maybe you do, and maybe I do in my...
That's why I got you guys here. I want to
Maybe
bring
you do,
different
and maybe I
perspectives,
do.
and I think
Well, we make a good.
And I think that other people... One of the things I do want to say is that I was pleasantly surprised with the knowledge and the information that Senator Steinborn offered. He knew a lot about the Colonias Fund. He knew a lot about the funding. He knew a lot about what needs to be done this session. And in my opinion, this is not going to be a session for a newbie to get in there and try to hit the ground running. We've got a lot of issues that have come about as a result of COVID, as a result of the lack of the taxes that will be coming, that used to come from the
But this is all new
national-
stuff. Maybe a newbie sees it with new eyes.
Well, the other,
Hey, there you go.
it's true, they can come with new eyes. But the other part of that too is that there's always a majority. And if you're in the minority, you don't get the new, you can bring the new eyes, but the new eyes don't get the results that the person that comes with the majority party.
So you think you should vote for the person who's in the majority?
I think you should vote for the person that's going to do the best good for your district and for New Mexico. And I think in this case, the incumbent is in that position right now.
Well, thank you both. I really do appreciate you and respect you both. Thank you very much out there. We had a lot of questions coming off of Facebook. I did encourage the candidates to go back and look at it, and hopefully they'll answer them. We can't get to all the questions. We only have an hour, but I do appreciate your interest and the questions that were asked. This is for you, the voters here in Doña Ana County. Thank you very much for viewing. Remember, vote to live, live to vote. I want to sit there and thank our sponsors, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel. Have a good night. Thank you.
I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.